Just as he turned, then I said, "You have been charged with the murder of the president." And he said, "What?" And I said, "You've been charged with the murder of the president." That was my one moment of great fame.
Wow.
But what happened was this great, the wrestling god said, "Okay, here are all this great talent." And it was like, where did these guys come from? Where did all this come from? Where did Precious and Sunshine and gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Gino Hernandez and all these people say that Mickey did most of the hard work. All I did was come in and do the other stuff and work with the people. But we figured it out together, and he certainly deserves a recognition in some wrestling history that most most fun, I guess. Sunshine, who was just fantastic at the beginning of this, sort of had a downfall, and she had to leave. And so here comes this new woman in with Jimmy Garvin. And we said, "Who's this? Precious." "Who's Precious?" "She's just Precious." So we didn't know who she was at the beginning. The rest of them came along. But they were good kids, good guys. Except I never thought that David was involved with drugs. Maybe Kevin some. But the rest of them, yeah, they were. The drug situation was really bad down there then. And unfortunately, he was not given a great amount of intelligence.
A lot of people say that.
And it's not his fault. I mean, he could do his business, but he didn't listen very well and didn't apprehend or comprehend things. David was the rock.
He was the workhorse, right? He was pretty much the best worker out of all of them.
He was the best.
Yeah.
You could always count on him. And he was independent. He had his own mind. And he and his father didn't, it clashed a lot. And then he went off to Florida. Kevin was the football player. He was the exciting halfback. And he had, he'd run around the ring. He was my barefoot boy with cheeks of tan. But David was the key to the whole thing. And I never associated David with drugs. I thought the others, I knew the others from just being around and watching him with Gino and all the other people. But I never thought of David that. He was married, kids, and but he may have. I mean, he was young.
Some feel that Fritz forced them into the business too young.
Oh, he forced everybody into the business. Of course it was too young. Of course, nobody in that family could have their own career. There's poor Chris at the end. He was about my size and heavier and didn't have that talent, and he's going to be a Von Erich. Poor Mike. He couldn't uphold the name of Von Erich. And the kid was a wonderful guy. They brought the body back, but they didn't embalm in Japan. He'd been over there, 2 weeks or something. And they said, "You don't want to." She demanded, "I don't care. I've got to be sure that it's my son." And it bothered me. It bothered me. And it was all, I was out, we went out and filmed. I guess you've seen that.
Yeah.
Around the lake area there. And the way that went.
Yep.
God's on our side and all this. And then using that death to get Kerry to win the championship from Ric Flair. I thought it was just an insult to David. I mean, I would go back to the dressing room and I'd say, "Here's what we're going to talk. Here's what I'm going to ask you, Kerry. Okay. Now, and you say, and what am I supposed to say?" "Well, I'd tell him what he else to say." "Okay." And so we'd go over it a couple of times. And he'd come out and I'd think, Or it was always like, oh, where is he going to go? And he was such a good guy, you couldn't get mad at him. He just that he would go off on stuff, and it never did him ruin anything. Mike, after he had the accident, that they were selling drugs to the wrestlers, or offering to sell them or give them. Everybody was using drugs. Gino would be just so flaked out. He would lie there on the couch in one of the offices and say, "How you doing, partner?" He said, "Oh, he was just in another zone." And he was another good, fun guy, but he got too heavily into that, and I thought there was more to it than him killing himself.
A lot of people say that.
In fact, Gary seemed to know, and Gary and I would talk about that because somebody did him.
Yeah, we did an interview with Gary, and he had mentioned that too.
Yeah, somebody killed him. We did a feature with him, Mickey and somebody else. We did it for somebody, and we were walking through the Texas Stadium, and he and I talked a lot away from the ring and about stuff all during those years. So he came over to me, we were walking along, he said, "Bill, is it really wrong to hate your father?" And I said, "Well, I guess," I said, "it depends on what has occurred to make somebody have that impression, or make that decision about him." I said, "But you can hate your father and love your father. I mean, there are things that my father never did anything, but I said, you can certainly disagree with him." He said, "Yeah, but," he said, "Dad cheated us, and look what happened with the boys." And he went into this thing, and he said he'd pay so and so, like Ric Flair, so much money, and he'd pay us the regular fee. The Cowboys were America's team. They were America's boys. And then here are the Freebirds. It's like they've been let out of some institution. And they're just out of control, out of whack. And Michael Hayes led that team. And but if you had a discussion between the Von Erichs and Michael, he's going to win. I mean, they're going to argue a little bit, but they don't know how to argue. They're the Von Erichs. They don't have to put up with that kind of stuff. There were things that happened later, and then Fritz brings him back, and he's not ready, and they had no ability to say no. It was just awful. He looked bad. He wasn't in shape. I mean, it was just a disgrace. And I did an interview with him before he did that last bout. It was, his mind never stayed in the same pathway. Everything I had for it, and was really proud of it. I'm still proud of that show. I think what Mickey and I and the people, the directors and all of that great crew we had, it was a slice of history, really, at that time.